When people talk about survival rifles, they're not really talking about power or even precision in the traditional sense. They're talking about something much more fundamental: reliability under pressure. The kind of firearm that still functions when it's dirty, when it hasn't been cleaned in weeks, when ammunition isn't perfect, and when conditions are far from ideal. Because in a true worst-case scenario, what many refer to as SHTF, it's not the most advanced tool that matters. It's the one that keeps working when everything else starts to fail. And that's what separates a survival rifle from a range rifle or a competition setup. A survival rifle isn't built for perfect conditions. It's built for uncertainty, limited maintenance, scarce resources, high stress. It has to be simple enough to fix, common enough to support, and durable enough to outlast whatever environment it's thrown into. Take something like the Ruger 1022 Takedown. On paper, it doesn't look like a survival weapon in the traditional sense. It's chambered in .22 LR, which many people associate with small game or recreational shooting. But that's exactly why it works so well in a survival context. Ammunition is lightweight, widely available, and easy to store in large quantities. The rifle itself can be broken down into two compact pieces, making it easy to transport discreetly or pack into a bag. And perhaps most importantly, it's incredibly reliable. The design has been around for decades, and parts are everywhere. If something breaks, chances are you can find a replacement or improvise one. That idea, commonality, is a recurring theme in survival firearms. It's not just about how well the rifle performs, it's about how easy it is to support over time. Because in a long-term scenario, you're not just using the rifle, you're maintaining it, repairing it, keeping it functional without access to a full workshop or supply chain. This is where something like the Henry AR-7 stands out. Originally designed as a survival rifle for pilots, it was built with portability and self-containment in mind. The entire rifle can be disassembled and stored inside its own stock, which is waterproof and floats. That's not just a gimmick, it's a deliberate design choice for extreme situations. If you're dealing with water crossings, unpredictable weather, or the need to move quickly, having a rifle that can be compacted and protected like that becomes a real advantage. But portability isn't everything. There's also the question of durability under sustained use. And this is where rifles based on the AK platform have built their reputation. The AK design is known for its ability to function in conditions that would stop many other firearms: dust, mud, sand, inconsistent maintenance. It's not the most precise system, but precision isn't always the priority in a survival scenario. What matters is that when you pull the trigger, the rifle cycles again and again. Then there's the Springfield M1A, which represents a different approach entirely. Chambered in a full-power rifle cartridge, it offers significantly more range and stopping capability than smaller caliber options. This makes it more suitable for situations where distance matters: open terrain, longer engagement ranges, or hunting larger game. But that added power comes with trade-offs: heavier ammunition, more recoil, and a larger overall system. In a survival context, every choice is a balance. More power means more weight, more range means more complexity, and the ideal setup depends heavily on the environment you expect to operate in. For those looking for a middle ground, rifles like the Ruger Mini 14 often come into the conversation. It offers a semi-automatic platform in a widely available caliber with a reputation for reliability and a simpler manual of arms compared to some other systems. It's not as modular as more modern designs, but that simplicity can actually be an advantage when you're trying to minimize points of failure. And then there are bolt-action rifles, like the Ruger American Ranch. At first glance, they might seem outdated compared to semi-automatic options. But in a survival scenario, simplicity is strength. A bolt-action rifle has fewer moving parts, which means fewer things that can break. It's easier to maintain, easier to diagnose if something goes wrong, and often more tolerant of different types of ammunition. Bolt actions also tend to be more accurate, which can be critical for hunting. And in a long-term survival situation, the ability to reliably harvest food may be more important than rapid-fire capability. A well-placed shot matters more than a fast follow-up. Another factor that often gets overlooked is caliber versatility, not in the sense of a single rifle firing multiple calibers, but in choosing a caliber that balances availability, effectiveness, and manageability. Common calibers are easier to find, easier to trade, and easier to store. They also tend to have more options in terms of load types, which adds flexibility. But even beyond caliber, there's the question of parts. Can you find magazines, springs, firing pins? These are small components, but they're critical. A rifle without a functioning magazine or a broken internal part is effectively useless. That's why many survival-focused setups prioritize platforms with widespread support and a large existing ecosystem of parts. Because survival isn't just about the moment of crisis, it's about what happens after. How long can you keep your equipment running? How easily can you adapt if something fails? How dependent are you on systems that may no longer exist? These questions matter more than brand names or specifications. There's also a psychological component to all of this. In high-stress situations, familiarity becomes incredibly valuable. A rifle you've used extensively, one you understand intuitively, is far more effective than something technically superior but unfamiliar. Muscle memory, confidence, and ease of use all play a role in how effectively you can operate under pressure. That's why many experienced survivalists emphasize training over equipment. The best rifle in the world won't help if you don't know how to use it properly, and a simple, reliable rifle in the hands of someone who knows it well can outperform more advanced setups in less experienced hands. At the same time, it's important to separate realistic preparedness from exaggerated scenarios. Not every disruption turns into a long-term survival situation. In many cases, the most likely challenges are temporary. Natural disasters, supply chain interruptions, short-term instability. In those situations, the role of a survival rifle is very different. It's not about constant use. It's about being prepared without overcomplicating your setup. And that brings everything back to the core principle, practicality. A survival rifle isn't defined by how impressive it looks or how many features it has. It's defined by how well it fits into a broader system of preparedness, how it complements your environment, your skills, and your needs. Because in the end, survival isn't about having the most gear. It's about having the right gear and knowing how to use it. And when everything else becomes uncertain, the tools that endure are the ones that are simple, reliable, and supported by more than just their design. They're supported by the person using them. And once you start thinking about survival rifles in that broader context, not just as standalone tools, but as part of a complete system, you begin to see how much the little details actually matter. Because in normal conditions, those details are easy to ignore. A slightly heavier rifle, a less efficient caliber, a part that's a bit harder to find. None of that feels critical when everything is working as expected. But in a disrupted environment, those small inefficiencies compound quickly. Weight, for example, becomes a real constraint. It's not just about the rifle itself, but everything that comes with it. Ammunition, magazines, cleaning supplies, spare parts. A heavier platform might feel manageable at first, but over time, especially if you're moving on foot, that weight adds up. It affects endurance, speed, and even decision-making. The more burdened you are, the fewer options you have. This is one of the reasons why lighter calibers like .22 LR continue to show up in survival discussions, even alongside more powerful options. It's not about replacing a full-power rifle, it's about complementing it. A small caliber rifle allows you to carry significantly more ammunition for the same weight, which extends your operational capability. It also reduces noise and recoil, making it more practical for certain tasks like small game hunting or discrete use. But that introduces another layer of decision-making: specialization versus generalization. Do you rely on one rifle that can handle most situations reasonably well, or do you build a system with multiple tools, each optimized for a specific role?
Boom!
There's no universal answer, but in many survival scenarios, simplicity tends to win. Managing one primary platform, one set of parts, one manual of arms, one type of ammunition reduces complexity. It makes logistics easier. It minimizes the risk of something going wrong because of confusion or incompatibility. At the same time, having a secondary option, like a compact takedown rifle or a lightweight backup, can provide redundancy. And redundancy is a key principle in any form of preparedness, because no matter how reliable a system is, failure is always a possibility. Springs wear out, parts break, situations change, and when they do, having a fallback can make the difference between adaptation and failure. Another factor that becomes increasingly important over time is maintenance. Not just whether a rifle can be cleaned, but how easy it is to clean under less than ideal conditions. Can it be disassembled without specialized tools? Can it tolerate running dirty for extended periods? Does it require precise lubrication, or can it function with minimal care? These questions might seem minor, but they become critical when resources are limited. You may not have access to proper cleaning kits, solvents, or even clean water. In those situations, a rifle that can continue functioning with minimal maintenance has a clear advantage. This is where design philosophy plays a major role. Some platforms are built with tight tolerances and high precision in mind, which can improve accuracy but reduce tolerance for debris and wear. Others prioritize reliability and simplicity, accepting a slight reduction in precision in exchange for greater durability. In a controlled environment, the difference might not matter. In a survival scenario, it can be decisive. There's also the issue of repairability. Even the most durable rifle will eventually need parts replaced, and when that happens, the ability to perform basic repairs without specialized equipment becomes incredibly valuable. Platforms with modular designs, widely available components, and simple internal mechanisms are easier to keep running over the long term. This ties directly into the idea of parts availability. A rifle that relies on rare or proprietary components may perform well initially, but if those parts become unavailable, its long-term viability decreases significantly. On the other hand, platforms with a large user base and widespread distribution tend to have a more robust supply of spare parts, both new and used. And in a prolonged disruption, that availability can extend beyond formal supply chains. Parts can be traded, salvaged, or even improvised from other systems. But that only works if the platform itself is common enough to support that kind of ecosystem. Beyond the mechanical and logistical aspects, there's also the question of adaptability. Environments change, needs evolve. A rifle that works well in one setting may not be ideal in another. Dense urban areas, open rural landscapes, heavily forested regions, each presents different challenges and opportunities. A compact, lightweight rifle might be ideal for mobility and close-range use, while a longer, more powerful platform might be better suited for open terrain. The ability to adapt your setup, whether through optics, accessories, or simply how you carry and use the rifle, adds another layer of flexibility. But again, there's a balance. Too much customization can introduce complexity and additional points of failure. In a survival context, every added component is something that can break, come loose, or require maintenance. That doesn't mean you avoid enhancements entirely, but it does mean you prioritize reliability over convenience. And then there's the human factor, the one element that no piece of equipment can replace. Skill, discipline, and decision-making are what ultimately determine how effective any tool is. A well-maintained, highly reliable rifle in the hands of someone who doesn't understand its limitations or capabilities is far less effective than a simpler tool used by someone with experience and awareness. This is why training matters. Not just basic operation, but familiarity under different conditions. Using the rifle in low light, in adverse weather, under stress. Understanding how it behaves, how it feels, how it responds when something isn't quite right. Because in a real scenario, there's no time to figure things out. You rely on what you already know, and that knowledge is what turns a piece of equipment into a functional part of your survival strategy. It's also worth considering the role of mindset in all of this. Survival isn't just about having the right tools, it's about using them appropriately. Knowing when to engage, when to avoid, when to conserve resources, and when to act decisively. A rifle is a tool, not a solution. It supports a broader approach that includes awareness, planning, and adaptability. And in many situations, the best outcome is achieved without ever needing to use it. That perspective is important because it keeps the focus on preparedness rather than reaction, on building systems that reduce risk rather than responding to it after the fact. In that sense, the concept of a survival rifle becomes less about the rifle itself and more about what it represents: reliability, simplicity, sustainability, a tool that fits into a larger system designed to function when other systems fail. And when you look at it that way, the specific model becomes less important than the principles behind it. Whether it's a compact takedown rifle, a rugged, semi-automatic platform, or a simple bolt action, the goal is the same: something you can depend on when conditions are uncertain. Because in the end, survival isn't about having the most powerful or advanced equipment. It's about having tools that continue to work when everything else doesn't. And more importantly, knowing how to make the most of them when it matters most.